89.7 KLES FM. My name is Richard Harris, and we got more bad. Here we go. At the French Open today and yesterday, we've had some things happen. Kim Clijsters, who had won the last two majors, she had won the Australian Open, had won the US Open, is going home. Now, yes, she's been battling some injuries this season, so she has not been the same player. This is probably the first tournament she's played in a while. But just yesterday couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark. I mean, she was spraying shots. It was like she had a hose in her hand and just was firing water randomly. I mean, every ball off her racket, she didn't know where it was going to land. And now she's gone. And then today, the number one player in the world, Miss Caroline Wozniacki, still has not won a tournament, not won a major, and still holds on to being the number one player in the world. Well, she got run over today by Daniela Antukova, who, when she's on with that backhand, nobody has a chance. And today she just absolutely mauled Miss Wozniacki. The French Open is the toughest surface to win a tournament on, I think. Just because winning 3 out of 5 matches on 3 out of 5 sets on the clay courts is as difficult as anything in sports. The hard courts, people talk about the US Open is the toughest tennis. It's only tough because you're dealing with the weather, you're dealing with the noise, you're dealing with a lot of different things that have nothing to do with the tennis. The French Open, the balls, it can get heavy because of the humidity. But just playing on clay, like the balls don't move as quickly as they do on other surfaces. So shots that you think are hit that are winners aren't winners. And if somebody's hitting baseline to baseline and hitting the line every time they hit the ball, forget about it. And it's sad because there are no Americans in Paris, no pun intended. All the Americans are done. And it's sad that we don't have any great players anymore in our game except for the veteran ones. I mean, who's the face of American tennis today? John Isner. Isner is known because he has this huge serve, and he's known because of that match he had at Wimbledon last year when he played to a huge 70-69 or 70-68 final in the 5th set. That's pretty much his claim to fame. I mean, we don't have the star players that we once did. And then on the women's side, you take the Williams sisters out, who do we have? Melanie Oudin. She's only 18 years old, 19 years old, so she's just learning how to play. She doesn't know what it takes to win majors yet. Yes, she had good runs in the last couple of years at the US Open, but with winning comes expectations. And right now, we don't have any American player on either men or the women's side really doing anything. Sam Querrey, he's a good player, but he's only good for a few rounds. Then he's done. We miss the Agassi, Sampras, Courier, Lindsay Davenport. Players who play tennis who carry a country. I blame those guys actually in a way because they didn't take these players underneath their wing and teach them how to be winners. When Pete Sampras came up, he ran to Ivan Lendl and hid under Lendl's, wing and tried to learn how to play the game. And made him become number one player in the world. Well, Sampras didn't take Andy Roddick. Andy Roddick wanted to be Andre Agassi. Andy Roddick wanted to be a crowd pleaser. He didn't want to be number one in the world. Well, it showed. He had one good run. And Roger Federer destroyed his confidence and destroyed men's tennis. James Blake was supposed to be quite a talent. He's nowhere. And yes, Jennifer Capriati, we know about her issues. But it's sad that the leadership of our tennis associations just isn't getting it done. And we'll be back with more good, the bad, and now finally, the ugly on 89.7 KLES LAS FM.
Hey, buddy, me? Job hunting on the internet, huh? Well, we got hot jobs, cool jobs, jobs that are absolute monsters. Just click on our homepage. Come on, click!
Hey, where are all the jobs?
Tired of internet job sites that lead you nowhere? Then log on to kforce.com. A new kind of job site, kforce.com. Over 2,000 recruiting specialists whose only job is to get you the job. kforce.com. Opportunity has a new address.
89.7 KLAS FM, Flamp Flamp Sports. We're talking about the good. We've done the good. It's a lot of good. We've done the bad. There's a lot of bad. A couple little things I didn't mention in the bad. We have some bad news for the Colorado Rockies. You know, their pitcher De La Rosa got to have Tommy John surgery, so he's going to be gone for probably 2 years. After he just pitched great a couple weeks ago against the Phillies, and you know his arm is done. Buster Posey just got nailed at home plate this week, messed up his leg. They're now just putting him on the DL. They think that he can heal and be ready for the latter part of the season. And so hopefully he can come back, because you don't want to see a young player of his ilk be out of the game too long. And so hopefully, even though that is bad, hopefully some good will come out of it. And maybe he'll be ready to lead his team into the postseason like he did last year. But that's why it's so important. The thing I was talking about earlier. You never know when you get that opportunity to get back to that big game again. Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl so early in his career, and people thought he'd be there every year. Never got back. So at least Buster Posey already has his ring. And so hopefully he will heal. Hopefully Grady Sizemore will too. I love Grady Sizemore. I talk about him so much. I just wish he would be healthy for a whole season. And you can see why people love his talent. And by the way, you can call in the show at area code 323-962-1937. I know I've been doing a lot of talking today, because I have a lot to say. And now, we're going to talk about the ugly. The first ugly, and probably the biggest ugly, is this Lance Armstrong story. Lance Armstrong can't catch a break. Whether it's his teammates, whether it's the federal government, somebody is upset with Lance Armstrong for something. Now, Lance Armstrong seems to think that his teammates are all trying to make a buck. His teammates are trying to all keep themselves out of jail for doing what they did and putting the blame on him. Whether that is true, we'll never know. And it's possibly partially true. Who wants to go to jail? Do you? And the federal government gives these guys an opportunity to ruin other people's lives, as long as they're ruining their lives too. And Mr. Tyler Hamilton comes on 60 Minutes last Sunday and starts telling the whole world all these amazing stories. Seeing EPO in the refrigerator with Lance Armstrong's name on it. Telling stories of how Lance Armstrong, and people had questions about blood doping, or people had questions about doing other things in terms of performance enhancement. They said, hey, call Lance. Even alleging that Lance Armstrong had one test in 2001 where they say he allegedly failed or a suspicious test, and it was covered up because he and the guy doing the tests are in cahoots. He even said, in fact, CBS said that Lance Armstrong donated $200,000 to the cycling association that this man runs. And some people read it into that as a payoff. Is that crazy? I mean, somebody's got to be telling, there's got to be some truth in some form or in some part of all these stories. Because so many people keep coming out with them. It would be one thing if one person said something, and then another person said something, and each story didn't either make sense or have any kind of correlation to one another. But whether it's Floyd Landis, whether it's Tyler Hamilton, whether it's this other guy, Hincapie, somebody always seems to have a story about Lance Armstrong. And yeah, it's been over a decade, and it gets tiresome. It's like the Barry Bonds story. It got tiresome after, 7 years of allegations, to the point where they went and got people who basically really didn't have anything to say, to the point where now the government is kind of sitting there saying, wow, we just wasted all this time, and all this guy gets is nothing. And now they're after Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong, of course, denies everything. He's never failed a test. In fact, he said he's never even received a letter that said his test had problems. In fact, he's been in so many races around the world, he hasn't even come close to failing anything. And it's disgraceful that this man continues to be dragged and dragged and dragged through this muck. And we as a sports community, we report it, we talk about it, because I guess we have nothing better to do. I think Lance Armstrong should just sue everybody. I think he should just say, you know what? If you can prove I failed anything, if you saw me do this, if you saw me do that, then say it. If you haven't, shut it up. But that'll never happen, because he doesn't want to open any more Pandora's boxes than he's already opened. This story's never going to go away. So I hope I won't have to talk about it ever again, because I kind of don't like talking about it, because I look up to him. And so do you. And so keep listening to 89.7 KLAS FM. We'll be back after this message. We have one more ugly on 89.7 KLAS FM.